Guys, this is Stephanie and I'm Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today I'm coming to you guys with my May wrap up. Now I didn't think I had a lot of books that I read in May. I actually didn't do a lot of videos in May and I was really busy, but apparently I read 8 books in May, which could have surprised me. I didn't realize I read that many books. And I know I usually go by my books with the last one I read to the most recent one I read, but this month we're going to do things a little differently. I'm going to start out with the crappiest book I read, and then we're going to end things on an up note. So the worst book I read in May was Sabriel by Garth Nix. I hated this book, you guys. Now, I have been told that I would like this book. I have been told that the writing comes off a little bit old. This book is written in, 1995? I wouldn't say, and it's really shiny, so I'm going to put it down. I wouldn't say the writing was old. I would say that it was just slow. Like, nothing happened for the first 75% of the book. We have a girl talking to some cat, and that is it for 75% of the book. And I was like, this book sucks. I'm not enjoying it. And it took me 3 goes of, starting it before I finally just got it on audio and was like, screw it, I can force myself to listen to this. And I fell asleep and I put it off. It was horrible. I think I started it in February, maybe January, and it just took me months and months to read it. I feel like the premise and the concept are actually pretty interesting. It's just the writing was so slow. And maybe I'm just not made for those fantasy books that are from the 80s and 90s. Maybe they are too slow for me. Maybe I've read too much YA. I don't know, but I did not like it. I gave it I think I upped it. I think I gave it a 1.5 initially, and I think I upped it to a 2.0, personally, because the last quarter of the book, something happens outside a girl and her cat. So I upped it a little bit because there was another character that came in, like any other character. But technically I gave it a 1.7. I did not like his writing. I don't think I'm going to go on with this series. Now, the person who got me to read this said that Lyriel is better than Sabriel. I don't know. I hated the writing so much. If the writing had at least been good, I think I would be a little more on board. If the writing had been good, I think I would have been this just had too much world building and setup for the series and stuff like that. But that was not it. I just didn't like the writing. I didn't like it. It doesn't suit me. I don't like it. I don't think I want to read anything else by Garth Nix. I don't think it's for me. So in this book, we're following a girl named Sabriel whose father is Death. We also call him Abhorsen. And I think it takes place in Australia as well. There are just some things I didn't follow super well because I think, I don't live in Australia and I haven't been there. Maybe I need to go to Australia. Maybe I would love the book if I went to Australia. I'll have to think on that. And her dad goes missing or dies. It's kind of confusing which one it is, missing or dies. And she has to go find him and save him so that he can keep being the Grim Reaper. Something like that. She goes to his house, which is on the other side, which is knights and people in armor kind of world. And then there's our world, which I'm guessing it was turn of the 19th century in Australia. It was very confusing. I'm not going to lie. And maybe the picking up and putting it down of it 15 times didn't help, but it was very confusing. And then this cat comes in. It's like a magical cat. It was confusing. I didn't really like it. Yeah. So there you go. Didn't like it. The next book I read was... I'm dropping things. Next book I read was Eat Right for Your Body Type. 4 blood types, 4 diets. Basically, it was a book that I read where it talks about specific blood types doing well with certain types of foods and other blood types do well with other types of foods. And it is a diet I have been trying just for health reasons, not necessarily to lose weight, though I would love the side benefit of losing weight. It's more just to help all the insides, work nicely together with one another. I think I gave it a 3 stars. I mean, it's a nonfiction book about blood types and how your body works. Wasn't interesting. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. Next rated, I had Percy Jackson in the Olympian, The Titan's Curse, which is the 3rd one in the Percy Jackson series. I gave this a 3.5 personally and a 3.0 technically. This was also technically a reread. The first time I read this, for some reason, I didn't like it, and I gave it a 2.0, which quite a few people are like, that's a little bit unfair, and I was like, but I didn't like it. And on my reread, I think I was just in a better mood for it, because I really did like it. The issue is, I mean, I shouldn't be reading these while I'm reading the Harry Potter books because there's really no comparison. They're not as good, but they're also not trying to be the Harry Potter books. So that's why it's not a fair comparison. They're their own thing. So I probably won't read any more of these till I wrap up my Harry Potter reading, honestly. But I did like it. We're following Percy and his gang. This one gets a little more serious. There is somebody who actually dies in this one. And it's a middle grade book. I mean, it's kind of a big deal when you kill off a middle grade character. But I did like it enough that I will finish the series and I will read more of Rick Riordan's books. I do like them and I like the world that he's building. I think he has great writing. I just think that I compare them to Harry Potter too much. I need to not do that. That's on me. So the next one I have is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the same gal who wrote Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I read like 2 years ago and it was my favorite book of the year. So I had pretty high expectations for this book. I gave it a 4.0 technically and a 4.0 personally. I was a little disappointed, and I'm sure some of it is this book has been so hyped, and this is one of the many reasons I try to not overhype books. Because people all over BookTube and Instagram and everything are like, oh my gosh, this is the best book in the world. The whole world's ending. It's fantastic. And I'm like, it was good. But it wasn't, it was okay. I didn't hate it. And actually I think initially when I put it on Goodreads, I gave it like a 3.0. And then I thought about it and I changed it. I don't know if you guys change your ratings, but I do. Because sometimes right when I finish the book, it's like, what did you think? Give me a rating. And I'm like, I don't know. I have to think about it. So sometimes I change them because Goodreads makes me give one right away. And sometimes you just need to think about a book for a little bit till you really know what to think about it. Basically, Daisy Jones and the Six is following a fictional music group from the 70s. And they had like one big, huge record. And it's like a bunch of interviews nowadays about that. Well, not nowadays. I want to say it's during the 90s, but I don't remember now. So some of the people are raving about it, so you should try listening to it. And my library had it on audio, so I got it on audio and I listened to it. And I do think I preferred it listening versus written because it is written in interview form. So it'd be like Daisy, blah, 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 Billy, blah, 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 blah. And you don't really hear the questions that the interviewer is asking. They're just re-implied by the people that are responding. So you have the 6 band members and then you have Daisy Jones. And the 6 were already a band in and of themselves when Daisy Jones came along, and then they did one album together that was Daisy Jones and the 6. So the whole book is pretty much following those 7 people, and then I think there's a few other, there's like a manager, there's a girlfriend, there's a few other people it's following as well. And it's good writing. Taylor Jenkins Reid is a good writer. I like her writing. I like her writing style. These are the only 2 books I've read by her. So maybe I'd hate other ones. I don't know. But I like these. I think I was expecting a 5-star, and I tried to go in and lower my expectations because everybody hyped it. But I also think ultimately what it came down to is I find a Hollywood starlet story, i.e. Evelyn Hugo, more interesting than a 70s band. I just do. That is more my niche, my thing, my interest, whereas the 70s band is great. But it's not, yeah. So if you're more of a music person, a band person, you might really like this book better than Evelyn Hugo. I liked Hugo better. I couldn't help but think that this might be my favorite book of the year, despite all the hype, but it wasn't. It was just a 4.0, which is still a very good rating, but I wanted another Evelyn. I wanted Evelyn 2.0. Didn't happen. Next book I had next highest rating. See, I am getting in a better mood as I talk about these books. Maybe I need to do this in all my reviews. Maybe. Was Slayer by Kirsten Wright. That's not her name. Kirsten White. That's her name. I loved this book. First of all, when I started it, I did not know it was going to be a series, and I'm excited it's a series. I gave this a 4.1 stars personally, and about a 3.5 technically. I liked the writing. It wasn't like amazing writing, but it was pretty good writing. And this is my first Kirsten White book as well. I have not read another one. I should read more of hers because I did like it. I will read more of this series, that is for sure. Basically, we are in the Buffy universe, just like it sounds, and it just made me want to go watch more Buffy and just sit among Buffy and Angel. It is a great book for Buffy fans, let me tell you. So this book picks up after all 7 seasons of Buffy. You don't really need to see any Angel, except you can always look at David Boreanaz. It's very nice to look at. And then you need to read a few of the graphic novels, like 4 of them, I think. But if you don't, and you've just seen the TV shows, it's totally fine. They tell you what happened. They're like, Buffy did the thing, and then you know what happened. So basically in this, though it's called Slayer, we are following Watchers. We are following the Watcher Council and all the weird stuffy Britishness, though they're all not all British, but a lot of them are. Then there's a Slayer in there as well. And I don't want to spoil things because, again, the journey is what's fun. But I did enjoy this. It definitely had a lot of Buffyisms in it as well. A lot of like Josh Whedon-isms and all the little quirky little sayings they say, the way they make words out of non-words, and it was fun. It was a really fun read. I read it really, really quickly, and I totally enjoyed it, and I will be continuing on. Coming in next with a 4.5, we have Elantras by Brandon Sanderson. This was actually a book club pick, which is great. I think we made it take over 2 months since it's like well over 600 pages. And I'm pretty sure I probably gave it like a 4.8 or something technically. The writing's great because it's Brandon Sanderson's writing, though I will say I can 100% tell that this is his first book. The writing, I did enjoy it less than I have enjoyed some of his other books, actually any of his other books. This is the least favorite of the ones I've read, but I still gave it a 4.5 because it was still very, very, very good. Basically in this one, we are on a planet where this city called Elantras basically got cursed somehow. We don't know what happened. And the people in it like died, but they didn't die. Like their bodies are dying, but they're not dying. So they're all kind of like zombies, basically. And then, so it's all gated in, and all the Elantrians are like kept in there. And then every once in a while, somebody outside of Elantras will get the zombie sickness, and then they throw them in there because we don't want it to spread, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of one storyline. And then the other storyline, we have this princess who has showed up at this city outside of Elantras' gates and is supposed to be marrying the prince. The prince died. So she's showing up for a wedding and she gets a funeral instead. And I do like the princess in this one. She's very smart. She's very strategic as well. She's not dumb, which is just so nice. Like, I feel like when it's a princess, they're either spoiled or they're stupid. And she's neither spoiled nor stupid. And I so appreciate that on so many levels. So we're kind of following both storylines. We're following the storyline of what's going on in Elantras, and we're following the storyline of Princess Serene. I did enjoy this book. It was really, really great. And it's Sanderson, so it's obviously way more complicated than what I just said. And it has a good magic system as well, but I just can't go into those details with you guys. But if you like Sanderson, you will like this one. I'm sure you will. Lots of people say it's their favorite. I'm just, I'm me. And coming in at 4.6, we have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. This is by Gail Honeyman, and this is a reread for me. I read this one a few years ago, and I loved it. And then I got it in a haul this spring, and I decided to read it again because I had pulled it out of the box, and I was looking at it, and I started reading it. What are you going to do? I am glad that I enjoyed this the second time around about as much as I did the first time. Just goes to show me that it was a very good book, and it is very well written. I always kind of get nervous sometimes when I'm reading a book a second time that I loved so much the first time, thinking maybe I won't like it as much. Maybe I was just in a mood for that kind of book then, and in hindsight, it's not as good as I thought. No, this one's great. It's actually fantastic. We are following a girl named Eleanor in this book, and I think she's in Scotland. And Eleanor has a very planned and organized life. She gets up at this time every day. She goes to work at this time every day. She works with computers and numbers and things, and her life is very precise. She eats the same thing on Tuesday night and the same thing, and then Wednesdays she eats this, and Thursdays she eats this, and this is her life. And every weekend she has about 2 bottles of gin. This is normal for her. And Eleanor also does not have a lot of friends. Basically, she has a weekly phone call to her mother, and that is all the interaction she gets outside of work. And she thinks most of the people at her work are very, very silly. And she kind of gets to know a tech guy because she has a tech problem with her computer. And as she is going to lunch, I think, one day at work, or maybe it's after work, but she's outside, and the tech guy is near her, and they witness a man collapse in a crosswalk. So they go to his aid because they're good people, and they get him to the hospital. And then the next day, the tech guy comes downstairs and he's like, "Hey, Eleanor, we should go check on him. Like, he's just some old dude, but he doesn't have any family. We should do this. This is what good people would do." And she's like, "I suppose you're right. It is what good people should do." So they go and do that. So this is basically a story of Eleanor's life leaving the usual as she is kind of making friendships and talking to people and doing things that are outside of her Tuesday night regime and learning more who she is when she steps out of the box of who she thinks she is. And I loved this book. I loved it the second time too. It's fantastic. It is definitely a contemporary, so if you like contemporaries, you just might like this one too. And the best book that I read in the month of May, coming in at a 4.8 personally and 4.5 technically, is Educated by Tara Westover. I loved this book. I can't even tell you. I loved this book so much. See, and I don't want to hype it because you're going to just be like, oh my goodness, this must be the absolute best thing that's ever been written in anybody's lives ever. And then you read it and you're like, that's good. It's not amazing, but it is amazing. And it's nonfiction. Nonfiction! I never read nonfiction. I enjoyed this book way more than I thought I was going to. I think I got on the wait list for it. So I listened to it. And then after I listened to it and I liked it so much, I bought it because I liked it so much. I heard about this book last year because that's when it came out. And I don't think I heard about it on anybody's booktube channel. I think a client told me about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And then I thought, why not? And I put myself on the wait list. I literally waited 5 months before I got this from my library to listen to it. 5 months. And then I was like, I better listen to it. I'm gonna have to wait an additional 5 months if I don't get this read in the 3-week time period that I have it. And I actually was pretty excited to read it. I couldn't believe I enjoyed it as much as I did. I was not expecting that at all. Basically, like I said, it is nonfiction, so it is about Tara, and she's telling her life story. Basically, Tara was raised in the mountains in Idaho by a family that are survivalists. So they don't pay taxes. They are not necessarily registered with the United States. Like when they're born, a lot of times they're born at home. They don't get social security cards. They have no formal education. They're homeschooled. Their homeschooling consists of teaching them how to can tomatoes and how to drive a tractor and how to deliver a baby, not, AP Calc or anything like that. And it's a very unconventional upbringing. They're also Mormon, but I feel like the religious side of this kind of takes a back seat to the family aspect of the entire book. Basically, at one point, she decides that she wants to go to college, but she can't go to college if she didn't graduate from high school. So then she has to get a GED, but there's so much that she doesn't know, and there's so much that she has never learned or ever been told about. So how's she supposed to learn all this? And then when she decides she wants to do this, and she gets like textbooks and things like that, her family is not supportive of this at all. So she is doing this by herself because she wants to have a higher education. And there's so much more to it than that. This is a beautiful story. This is a story of a woman just being vulnerable, laying her life out there. I loved how vulnerable she was. I respect her immensely. I respect the way she told this story and how hard that would be to be open with everybody, all of America, all of the world, and to be yourself on these pages and to write your story. And it's not always a pleasant story. There are a lot of things that happen that were hard to read. I definitely cried numerous times when I was listening to this because there are some things we just don't talk about because they're very uncomfortable. And she talks about them and they're very uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean they don't need to be said. And I feel like she says it in the best way possible, but it's still uncomfortable. So all in all, I loved this book. I loved her writing. I loved her story. And it was very incredible. And the part about it that tugs at my heart the most is the whole family dynamic and the dysfunctionality of her family. So I just want to encourage everybody to read it. I don't even know what kind of books you like to read. I don't know if you're like, I don't read nonfiction or I don't read sad stories. It's just a story that needs to be heard. And that's why I think I liked it. And that's why I think people need to read it, because it is a story that needs to be heard. And that is it, guys. That is all I have. All of the babblings that I have for the month of May. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, I didn't think I read a lot, but apparently I did. And I tried to not gush too much about books and like hype them up for you, because anything you put on a pedestal is going to fall. That's just how it works. But if you only read one book off of my list, read this one. Please comment down below if you've read any of these books. I'd love to know your thoughts and your feelings about them and all of that good stuff. Feel free to like, subscribe, watch another video, pick your nose, do what feels good, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Goodbye!